Welcome to this new how-to. In this how-to we're going to look at the autopilot of the Twin Otter from Aerosoft, which has been released earlier this week. Currently I'm flying on the autopilot, so let's look at some of the items where you need to say keep an eye on if you want to use the autopilot. So the autopilot can be managed via two systems, or via two methods I should say. There's one which is over here in this panel, which I'd say extends a bit to this one, which can be used to set the maximum altitude. For this one, it looks like there were some issues, although there are some rumors there are some issues, because you can see that for me it works perfectly, but there were also some people reporting other issues. So the main switch is here, right? So this is to switch on the autopilot and to disengage it, and here you can see the trim up and trim down. And here you can see the trim in motion. Trim in motion simply means that the aircraft is automatically balancing out to ensure that it can, let's say, keep flying the same altitude, right? That's also what you see here with the vertical speed meter. It needs to keep it default at least as close as possible to zero to maintain the same speed. And that's why you see these LEDs switching on and off continuously. Then here you've got the heading select button, right? The heading select button can be manipulated by using the heading option and the heading button, which can be found here. So by using this one or by using this one, you can set the heading. This one is for the ADF, this one is for the VOR, right? So for normal navigation. So let's assume that I want to fly this direction. I can turn the button, and then when I have turned the button, it will fly in that direction. So let me do that. I'm going to switch to the heading mode now, and then you will see that it will start making a turn up till, what is it? Almost 230 degrees or something, 235 degrees. That's one of the options. The other option is the ALT, which is the altitude hold mode. Altitude hold mode means the aircraft will keep flying this altitude, in this case the 12,000 feet. It will remain on that altitude, it won't change anything. If you want to change your altitude, then you probably want to use the IS mode, or use the mode here, which is also here. This is the vertical speed mode. And then you can configure, okay, what's the climb or descent rate which you want to fly, and actually the, I would say, speed which you want to fly. The nav mode, that's the different one, right? So in this case, the nav mode has been set to GPS. You can change that by pressing the CDI button to change it to nav 1 or nav 2, but in this case I'm using the GPS mode. So if I change it back, then you will see that the aircraft will start turning and will make its turn as close as possible to the pink line over here. Right, so you can also see it here. Then we've got the approach mode, and the approach mode is, I would say, relatively easy, because the approach mode is used during approaches, and that one can be used to capture the glide scope and make sure that you're, let's say, landing smoothly by following the ILS, which is, if an airport has ILS available. The back course is different, right? If you fly in the opposite direction of ILS, then you can use the back course, but let's say you probably won't use this very much. The altitude mode, again, depends on the set altitude, and that can be changed by using this small knob, and that will show an alert here, right? Altitude alert, and that will make you aware, hey, we've hit the altitude. If we look at this center pane, you can see the same options are there, right? So you can either switch on the autopilot by pressing this button or by pressing the button here. This will automatically, let's say, enable the autopilot. If I would switch it off, you will also see that the switch goes off here. If I switch it on, you will see that it also automatically goes here. It automatically goes into vertical speed mode, and then you can use the up and the down button to change the climb speed, right? So for example, you want to climb to 15,000 feet, but want to climb with, let's say, 200 feet per minute, you can change it by using these buttons. Relatively easy. The altitude itself can be changed by using this button. So you can see that it's pretty redundant in the aircraft, either using this specific part of the aircraft or using this part. So let's switch heading mode on again, and also make sure that we're using the alt mode. In this case, I want to change the alt mode, so we can change it back to the 12,000 feet. And then you can use the up and down modes if you're lucky. Then you need to approach. We can change it, for example, by saying, hey, we want to descend or altitude with 100 feet per minute. Then it will start doing the descent, and then after it's at that specific position, you probably want to enable the altitude mode here. In some cases it stops automatically, but I've seen scenarios where it doesn't work, right? So keep it in mind. So I'm gonna then make sure that the nav mode is enabled again. So be aware that if you want to change the vertical speed, you need to disable the alt mode, because else it won't pick up the changes. Eventually it should pick it up, or it will set it automatically back to the alt mode again. And this is where you also can see the different modes which are enabled, right? So heading mode, navigation mode. One thing to keep in mind is that if you're too far from the pink line, it won't use the navigation mode. In that case, you need to use the heading mode to fly as close as possible to the pink line. But I would say in parallel, activate the nav mode. That will ensure that once you're close enough to the pink line, it will automatically switch from heading to nav mode, right? So those are the options which you can do to easily, I would say, switch from heading mode to navigation mode. Then it will say nav mode is, I would say, not enabled, but kind of triggered. And once you're close enough, it will really enable it and switch off the heading mode. So be aware that if you try to enable the heading mode or the nav mode or your flight plan and you're too far from this pink line, you will see that it will not start turning. In that case, first use the heading mode to go as close as possible. Leave the nav mode also switched on. Once you're close enough, we'll enable it. On the other options, right, these are referring to both the approach mode and the back course mode. It's this rough mode. The arm refers to the speed hold option, which can be used to both increase or decrease the altitude of the aircraft. So relatively easy autopilot. Although some people say, hey, you only need to switch on the AP option, right? So I would say that's this one or this one. If you do that, it will start, or it will continue climbing the climb rate which you already had set before, and will simply fly straight forward. It won't do anything else. So keep that in mind. You can do it, but if you want to benefit from the most functionalities, you probably also want to enable those additional functions which are, say, below here. A little bit the same as the other aircrafts which are part of Flight Simulator 2020. Any other things from the autopilot perspective? Well, actually not really, right? I would say it's relatively easy. It works. Some people say it doesn't work, but it looks like to work in most scenarios. Maybe there are scenarios where it doesn't work. If you hit an issue with the aircraft, then please report those issues to, in this case, Aerosoft, right? Make them aware that you hit an issue, because if you don't report anything, then they don't know, hey, there is an issue and we really should fix something. Because one of the things which you also probably hear in this video is that the, let's say, audio is not perfect, but it's already been announced on let's say, on their fora that they are working on it to get it fixed. So do expect an update for that issue soon. So here ends this video. In this video we looked at the autopilot of the Twin Otter Aerosoft aircraft, which has been released earlier this week. I hope you liked this video. If you liked it, then consider to use the like button. If you've got questions or comments, then feel free to post them in the comment box below. And if you want to stay up to date about new videos I'm posting, then make sure that you're subscribing to my channel. Thanks for watching and see you next time.